Hey guys, Rafe here from Evolve Move Play. Today we wanted to talk about roughhousing. Roughhousing is one of our central concepts. What we found is that rough and tumble play is one of these universals of play, something that goes back 160 million years. And it's foundational not only to how we develop our bodies, but how we develop our psychological strengths, our social ability, our ability to communicate with other people, and our emotional control. So it's a really, really important concept. I'm going to cut there because I'm out of breath. So roughhousing is one of our key concepts in Evolve Move Play. Roughhousing is this form of play that's totally universal. It's across every culture in the world, and really it's across all mammals and lots of other animal species as well. It's probably been around for maybe 160 million years, and it's foundational for martial arts, it's foundational for dance, and it's actually foundational for the way that we communicate and even our moral systems. So it's this incredibly important form of play and movement that is really nourishing to us as human beings, that's being increasingly shut down throughout our culture because we're afraid that it has to do with violence. And really what it is how we prepare ourselves to deal with violence and how we prepare ourselves to be controlled so that we don't have to use violence. So roughhousing is this incredibly important thing, and it's something that we've lost the culture of and how to do well. So we teach 5 core principles in Evolve Move Play about how we roughhouse well to gain the most benefits from it. The first one is that it has to be safe. A little bit of danger is good. It puts us on edge and we grow from it. And it can't be completely safe, but if it's so unsafe that we feel a lot of fear, it's going to tend to shut us down. And we're not going to be able to learn well in those circumstances. So this is the problem that a lot of people face when they first go into martial arts. They don't have enough background to feel safe doing it. So we need to create ways for people to feel safe enough to be successful, even when they're training with much bigger people, much more skilled or experienced people. When you see the way that Robert and I were playing in the beginning, that's based on the fact that both of us have extensive years of martial arts training and have been training together for 3 years now. So the freedom and intensity with which we can train is not what we're going to start people at, but it's what we're trying to work you guys up towards. The second principle is rapport, and this is a big part of safety, which is how do we deal with the relationships with the people that we're working with. We want to build an understanding of how to communicate through movement and how to understand when a partner is learning from the movement and when we're learning from the movement. So we focus a lot on building rapport, and that's what our first drill is going to be today. The third principle is emotional control. You need to recognize when you're starting to feel overwhelmed, when you are starting to feel like you need to win the next round to please your ego, when you need to dominate, when you are afraid and you feel shut down and you don't want to be there anymore. Those are signals that the game is no longer working for you. You need to change it so it is. And that brings us to success, the fourth thing. We tend to engage in play when we have some level of success. If we're not successful at least 30% of the time, most people will start to negatively associate with that game, so they won't want to do it. And this is a huge problem in our physical culture in general because we send kids into sports early, and the many who are not really successful in those specialized sports end up hating physical practice. So we want to give people lots of novelty, lots of opportunities to try new things so they can find those things that they're successful at and get really grooved into movement. And the fifth principle is goal orientation, right? There's lots of ways that we can move with a body if we think about what we want to achieve, if we pay attention to what we're doing and how it takes us to something that we want, whether it's better communication with our partners, whether it's just more fun or self-defense or being able to hit harder or throw, whatever it is, the better that we can look at the game and start recognizing what it's giving us, the more we're going to be able to get out of it and the more likely we are to keep our practice together. So our first game that we're going to play is a game that's about building communication and rapport with a partner. So we're not going to start with any sort of competition, with any sort of grappling or striking. What we want to start with is just beginning to understand what it's like to communicate physically with another person and learn the different ways that we can do that. So we're going to start wrist to wrist. And what we want to focus on is a relationship that we call additive. So if he presses into me and I just completely collapse, we call that passive. If he presses into me and I completely resist as hard as I can, we call that resistant. But if he presses into me and I say, okay, cool, yeah, I can go that way, and maybe we'll also go this way, That's what we call additive. And this is a core principle that allows us to communicate better in the way that we speak to people, in the way that we relate to people, and actually even in a martial arts. So if he throws a punch at me, boom. If I'm completely passive, that's no good. I just get hit and I fall down. If I'm completely resistant, sometimes that works. Maybe I can break his hand with my head, but it's a high risk strategy. It has a lot of costs. However, if he throws that punch and I say, okay, you're going that way, great, now I'm going to add something to it, that's one of the best situations that we can be in. And the same thing actually applies in a conversation. I'm not necessarily trying to win, but if he's making a series of points and I'm just like, that's not a very interesting conversation. And at the same time, if he's like, I believe in X, Y, and Z, and I'm like, no, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. That's not very fun either. Maybe you've seen the Monty Python skit where they have an argument. It's just like, no, yes, it is an argument. No, it isn't an argument. It's not very interesting. You don't want to be there. What tends to work really well in relating to someone else is when he offers me his thought, I try to find the thing that I resonate with, and then try to connect that to my thoughts and what I want to share. So I affirm what he has to say, and then I expand on it, bring my own take into it. And this creates a lot better flow in conversation with people and communication. So what we're learning in this game, it has applications that are, far beyond just the game. So what we want to do is he's going to start pressing into me or pushing into, pulling away from me, whatever. I want to read whatever he's doing and just add my own take on it. So as we do this, we don't want to get stuck in the same patterns. One of the classic things that we find is that people who don't have strong play backgrounds, they tend to become very rote and repetitive in their behavior. We find this in other animals as well. One of the best things about play is it allows us to expand our ability to try new things, and that's so good for our cognitive flexibility. So that's what you want to get in this game. So like a lot of martial artists, you put them wrist to wrist and it's like, okay, well now we're controlling the center line and I'm just going to be trying to tag you there. That's a great game, but it's not this game. What I'm looking for here is actually novelty. I want to put myself in situations that I've never been in. I want to find relationships between my body and his body that I've never experienced. I'm looking for novelty. I'm looking for new information, and this is super good for my nervous system. Once we've started getting comfortable with just one point of contact, we can start opening up to multiple points of contact. Eventually, as we get comfortable with this game, we can start jumping onto each other's backs and floating around and picking each other up and flying through the air. And perhaps we'll introduce you guys to that aspect of the movement in a future video. But the basic concept we want you to get here is that any kind of roughhousing game is actually about communication. And the base place that you want to start communicating is, how do I get in tune with this other person, create a strong connection and a lot of trust and a lot of fun in that interaction, and from there we can really start building a lot of amazingly fun ways to interact with each other and become better movers and better human beings.